Okay, ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome to Adda on a very, very wet day. All of you have braved the rain to get here, and the last-minute date change as well. Rajeev ji has flown down from Delhi for it, so whoever didn't make it, I don't know what their excuse is. He's taken a flight. Although I must say that, I don't know how many of you all know this, but Rajeev ji is a very accomplished aviator. So if something goes wrong in the plane, he's very confident of taking over, which others probably don't have the same confidence. Rajeev ji, we have spoken 8 years and 2 months ago on tech in Goa for the first time. Then we spoke 8 years later, exactly 2 months ago, again on tech in Delhi. And now we're talking on tech and more things in Mumbai. A lot happened in 8 years, but also a lot has happened in 2 months since we last spoke. I made a small list of things that have happened in the last 2 months. When we last spoke, we spoke about 2 legislations. Now we're talking about 4. So the 2 new legislations have been introduced in tech space that you're championing. GST has happened for gaming, which hadn't happened in the last 2 months. Jack Ma was spotted in Pakistan in the last 2 months. Foxconn came 2 months ago, moved from one state to another in these 2 months, and now it's left. That happened in 2 months. Micron, on the other hand, has announced that it's come in the last 2 months. There's talk of many others coming. Modi has finally met Musk. We spoke about big tech valuations correcting, but that has again sharply recovered in the last 2 months. And Instagram launched Threads to challenge, Threads is challenging Twitter. So that's kind of also happened. The I.N.D.I.A, hours after we met, the I.N.D.I.A, Internet Mobile Association of India, held its first meeting with an Indian tech chairperson after many years. He's with us today. Harsh Jain is here with us. He's the president of I.M. So I think and obviously the opposition yesterday have announced that they're united for an I.N.D.A has happened. So this is all that I can kind of say. And the one thing that hasn't changed over the last 8 years is that 8 years ago, Ajit Pawar was our deputy chief minister, and he's a deputy chief minister even today.
So you're obviously chronicling the history of politics and technology with
trying to merge the whole thing. So have I missed anything significant in the last 2 months, according to you?
Look, I think what you consider significant and I consider significant are a little different, certainly because of what my responsibilities are. No, but I think I'm not tracking things on a month-to-month basis, certainly not. Yeah. But I think the velocity and trajectory of the progress of all things technology that commenced in 2015 are certainly sharper now and even more at an accelerated pace. And the Prime Minister's historic visit to the US is certainly a big vindication of the fact that the Indian tech space and the Indian innovation ecosystem has really come of age. That we are certainly being considered now as, if not equals, but as partners in some very critical areas that are going to shape the future of tech. Semi-conductors, quantum, AI, and so on and so forth. So I am not tracking it as granularly as you are, but certainly I can say that we are on track, certainly for $1 trillion digital economy very soon.
What is the one thing that, we spoke about last time a little bit, but I think this massive fluctuating in the valuation of tech companies, who do you think, is, I think, fundamentally responsible? Is it the institutional investor? Is it the retail investor? Is it the founder? Is it the regulator? Who is, central in this?
At the risk of revealing how old and ancient I am, I will say this, that this is not the first time it's happening. This has happened repeatedly. I've seen this in the mid-90s, I've seen this in the early 2000s, and we are seeing a repeat of it. There is always 2 asynchronous cycles at play here. One is the growth of innovation, and then the interest of investors. And these things don't track exactly parallelly. And they sometimes intersect, and one then falls off the cliff, then the other one continues. So I don't think we should read too much into valuation corrections. It is in a sense, something very, very fundamental to the nature of this innovation ecosystem, the innovation economy, that people will overpay, they will overvalue, then things correct. Demand, supply, there'll be more and more people doing the same thing, and suddenly it is not as unique anymore, and then that corrects valuation. And as what we are seeing today, there is risk aversion suddenly in the world because of what is happening global from an economy standpoint. That creates a certain other impact on valuation and risk appetite. So these global trends will certainly continuously impact how our startups in India and indeed around the world will experience valuations and value discovery. But as long as you are in the black, now you don't have to set your goals to be 2.879 billion. As long as you are value accretive in the businesses that you're building, as a founder, I would say that should be the only outcome that you should be focused on. If that outcome is X billion or X million, that should be a function of many other factors, including your own capability and the intellectual property you're building.
You have been an entrepreneur, you've been an investor, and now you're on the regulatory side. Is there nothing that you find abnormal, alarming about all this? Forget big tech, but in the startup space specifically.
Anand, is there anything abnormal in people paying huge valuations for companies that end up going nowhere? Of course there is. But this is like we say in the free market, everybody has the right to be foolish and make foolish decisions as well as take smart decisions. It's a fundamental right of investors. And so the government has no role here in coming and trying to adjudicate or set a base price or say this is the right. You remember in the old days in India, we had the capital controller of capital issues, CCI, that used to determine market pricing. That is not the government's job. It is really between an investor and a founder or a company to determine at what price they want to transact. And the investor is being foolish or he's overpaying. Maybe he has a rationale for it. Maybe he has a strategic sense of why he's overpaying. That is not something that the government should or could or can ever intervene in or regulate.
What about the jobs that then kind of come in? I'm not being too negative. I'm just trying to get a sense. You might not as a regulator get involved, but as somebody who's followed tech for so long, somebody is at $22 billion valuation, then overnight you're at 5.
No, look,
the valuation will affect the investor, of course, but it's more importantly that high valuation was powering job growth, right? They were hiring because of a high valuation.
Right. No, so there are two ways now. You can either say that the jobs were creating high valuation, the high valuation were creating jobs. Which came first? I don't. Okay. It's that whole Christopher Columbus. Sure. I'm going out to discover something and I discover something else. I think, look, if you see layoffs in the tech space post-COVID, it has happened to Google, it has happened to Microsoft, it has happened to Meta, it has happened to the biggest and the smartest and the greatest, and then the small startups as well. Everybody coming out of COVID thought that digital boom and the digitization boom and the expansion will be a permanent phenomenon. Everybody thought work from home would be a permanent thing. And you are now seeing post-COVID as the disease is being defeated and economies are settling down and the old models are recovering, that there is now a balance between the digitized world and the digitized workplace versus the real workplace. And so therefore there are people who have overestimated demand, overestimated consumption of digital products and services, and that correction is manifesting itself in resizing, right-sizing of organizations. This is, in my opinion, it's a pretty natural thing for companies, even the big ones, and the startup space specifically. The boom or bust is, in a sense, built into the DNA of what a startup is.
Right.
So if you look at startups, just to narrow it down to the ones that are in the semiconductor design space.
Yes.
We've got some 28, 30 odd companies that have started doing design in India. So, while we're looking at fabs and chip manufacturing, is there a trade-off between the services part of it, that is designing, something of the ARM, the UK chip design company? If that, is that something that we ought to focus on more than the fabrication itself?
No, so I don't think it's a binary, Anil. I think the way we have approached it from December 2021, after the Prime Minister approved the semiconductor policy, is that we are building an ecosystem. And why this is important is for those who understand the way technology is going and technology performance is being built, is that it is no longer a unipolar approach towards the next generation of performance. Design innovation is also creating performance enhancement. System design is also adding to it. Packaging is also a very important part of the equation going forward, as well as fabs and the latest nodes. Today you look at NVIDIA is a company, is a $1 trillion company, is a fabless company more or less. And they have intellectual property to the next generation of GPUs. So design, and because the world of semiconductor is now creating a space for design-led performance innovation, it is right time for India to be a player in the semiconductor space. We have today, apart from North America, the largest pool of semiconductor talent in the world. We have close to 100,000 engineers in India today that are working for the global majors that are all highly talented, highly skilled VLSI. Now, if they can also start developing intellectual property, next generation devices, and that is what the market is seeking. The NVIDIA success is certainly a beacon that says that this company that came out of nowhere is today setting the tone for what will be the next generation of semiconductor and devices in the AI and AI compute world. And that is precisely what we want out of our startups. And we are funding them in the government, we are funding them through grants, we are funding them through equity. And we are also encouraging the big companies, the ones who actually own the IPs, the E.D.A companies and the semicon companies, Intel, AMD, to also partner with Indian startups. So that even if you don't end up in the short term with IP and devices that are Indian, we can at least have co-owned IP and co-owned devices developed in India.
So, how significant is the Micron investment? Because it is primarily packaging. It's a downstream of the fab thing, and 70% of the project cost is being funded by the government.
Yeah, look, I know that everybody will say it's simply packaging, and with great respect to you, Anil, it is not simply packaging. There's nothing as simple in packaging of the largest memory producer in the world. Packaging is about as sophisticated as an area for innovation and performance as any other area in this ecosystem that I talked about. Yes, it is less capital intensive. Yes, it is less sophisticated than the fab. But that is not a comparison where the packaging comes off looking bad. Fabs today are, simply the most complex manufacturing process in the planet. And I'll give you an example of what a fab means. To give you an idea, a fab of 10 nanometers is drawing circuits when a red blood cell in comparison is 1,000 nanometers. That is the granularity of the manufacturing process. The temperatures that the plasma for a EUV lithography machine generates when it engraves that 10 nanometer line is 40 times the surface temperature of the sun. So it is that is a totally next generation of, but because that is next generation, to say the packaging is simply packaging is wrong. Number one. Number two, understand one thing, for us, we have repeatedly missed the bus as a country, semiconductor and electronics. There was an interesting article recently in a newspaper that says, way back in 1960, the Fairchild Quartet, who went on to form Intel, wanted to set up a packaging unit in India, and we said no. So we are a case in the last 65, 70 years of just a simply repeated lost opportunities in semiconductors. So when Micron, as a company that has multiple options around the world to invest and build capacity and capability, and is one of the most important brands in the semiconductor space, comes to India and says we choose to start a packaging unit in India, with, of course, the fond hope that at some point they will vertically integrate and create a fab here as well. It is something that is a big landmark milestone as far as I am concerned. And to achieve this in 18 months after we launch our ambitions, I think is not an insignificant achievement. Now, there will always be the naysayers, the cup is half full, I mean, these are the same naysayers who had the cup half fully empty for 65 years. And so they'll say, no, why is the cup not full immediately? And I say to them that, look, the Prime Minister's vision today is to build in 10 years a semiconductor ecosystem and a position for India in the semiconductor supply chain of the world that China took 30 years to do and is still unsuccessful. China spent $200 billion for its semiconductor ambitions and still came up short. And we are trying to do this with $10 billion, and we are trying to do this in a decade. So if anything, I think what we are doing today is something that we should be, I'm not saying pat me on the back or pat Prime Minister on the back, but certainly as a country, this is something that we should all be fully behind.
So we have actually, I go back to the 60s, even like, not even that long ago, I mean, Nokia in Tamil Nadu
Got shut down.
was the biggest, most, it just should not have happened, that kind of self-goal.
Yeah.
But what, the larger picture, I know you've read that book, Chip Wars. We both exchanged notes on it a couple of months ago. Who's going to win these chip wars, do you think? And will it be one winner?
No, I don't think it's a zero-sum game at all, Anand. I think to believe that at the end of the day, like some countries believe, that at the end of this decade of technology intensification and acceleration, there are going to be clear haves and there are clear have-nots, is to look at this wrong. Our approach to this is to say, what is happening post-COVID and post the Russia-Ukraine conflict is there is certainly a redrawing of the electronics and semiconductor value chains. Before that, there was an extraordinary amount of concentration of that supply chain in China. People have now realized that there needs to be a lot more diversification of that supply chain, and that having these concentrated pockets of semiconductor and electronics is not good for the world, because the world is consuming more and more electronics. Electronics today represent the second most traded commodity in the global trade scene after hydrocarbons. The global market size for electronics is 1.7 trillion. Of it, 65% of that originates from China. So I think there is this redrawing underway. India is stepping up today both in electronics and semiconductors to be a major presence there. And our positioning is a very interesting positioning, because we are saying our positioning is that we are a trusted partner to the world, unlike maybe some other countries. We are a resilient partner, as well as we represent domestic demand, given our own ambitions for digitalization and the progress that is making in terms of our own market and our own consumers.
And what's been the toughest part to sell, to get interest in investment?
So the toughest part, when you talk to those 5 or 6 or 7 semiconductor companies, and when you tell them, look, India is now ready to talk to you and engage with you, is to say, no, but you've tried it 65 years and you failed. Why do you think you'll succeed now? So then, you have to make the pitch and you have to make the presentation saying, look, there are many things that have changed in the last 8 years. There is a whole vibrant electronics ecosystem. The best factories in the world are being built here. No, factories can't be built in India like this. We show them factories that are built in Noida in 12 months, which are the world's largest ex-Korea manufacturing plant for mobile phones. So I think the Indian capability in this very cutting edge area and our ability to execute these kind of projects is something that people were cynical about, at least in this segment of companies. Because they are used to the US, they're used to Taiwan, they're used to Korea. And suddenly for them to be confronted with the possibility or an opportunity to invest in India is something that it takes a little bit of selling and marketing. That is why I've always maintained that our semiconductor journey will not be one of instant gratification like that. It won't be, aaj bola, kal headline kiya. Wo nahi hoga. This is a medium to long game. We have to be patient. People have to believe in our strategy, and they will come when they have to come.
So how important is it to get the first project right? I'm talking about FABs, because clearly the Foxconn Vedanta thing wasn't going anywhere. It was evident for months.
So let me explain that as well. I think there is a lot of editorializing that has happened on the Foxconn Vedanta, including people waxing eloquently about it being a blow to our ambitions and things like that, including foreign magazines and so on. It is not a blow. This was a joint venture. There were 2 partners. They agreed to disagree and disengage. The history of that joint venture was that they submitted a proposal for a 28 nanometer fab. And we were very happy with that proposal. They had to in turn meet the condition of creating a licensing of the 28 nanometer technology from somebody who had it. They were not successful in doing that. And so we gave them enough time. We understood that it's a long process. We gave them plenty of time. They could not do it. And so that proposal effectively came to naught. They have then subsequently come and applied as a 40 nanometer fab, for which they have shown us some evidence that they have the technology, and then we will verify it through the technology advisory committee, etc., etc. Foxconn has in turn said that they will also apply for fab. So we are in a sweet situation today where we will have two proposals when earlier there were only one proposal. So I don't see this as being a blow. I think this is, all things equal, this is actually a good thing for the country, where both the partners who are valued investors in India, who continue to invest in other parts of the economy and create jobs, want to pursue their semiconductor strategy independently, which is fine.
I can't help but two people away from you is Mr. Agarwal from Vedanta. So I'm not putting you on the spot, but I just couldn't help to sort of point that out. You want to say anything? You want to add something to this, Sarkar?
No, I think just speaking on behalf of what Rajeev Chandrasekhar has said, I think absolutely agree that in fact last few days and weeks we've just recommitted as a group in terms of our investment in the fab, and I think very much excited and positive about it.
Super. So, the one thing that keeps coming up when you talk to foreign money and tech, both when you talk about India, and maybe it's a cynic in me but corporate governance as an issue keeps coming up. Especially, I think, with startups. I'm just diverting from this heavy, stuff around semiconductor, etc. Whether it was housing in 2015, Food Panda 2016, Bharat Pay, Go Mechanic now, and Byju's is on headline every day for the last couple of weeks. Is corporate governance in startups an issue that concerns you at all? Look, I am more than other industries.
Yeah, look, let me answer this way. I think the Indian startup and innovation ecosystem is being looked at by the world. And it is now the center of attention for a lot of people all around the world. So it's no longer just you and me looking at and observing it and congratulating. It's become a global phenomenon. There are global investments at play. There's billions and billions of dollars. As you know, the tech space itself attracted over 80% of the FDI in the year 2022. A lot of this went into these startups. So therefore, for us, it's a big asset that has to be protected, nurtured, and grown and expanded. So any news on the fringes that is bad news, that is corporate governance linked, is certainly not something that we are happy with. And I have, on my own, met with investors who were involved in companies which ran afoul of these corporate governance, and I have told them that investors have a very important responsibility in mentoring young founders, in how to be good founders, how to build good companies. That as much as innovation is important, integrity is important. As much as valuation is important, hard work and determination to stay the course, to think about it medium to long term is important. These are values I have learned as an entrepreneur. And certainly I believe it is the role of every investor today who's sitting on the board, who's writing a check, to not just invest in there and think and worry about the exit and how many 100% return they get. They also must build these founders to be very, very responsible businessmen, because that is what we want to project to the rest of the world, that this is a sustainable, vibrant ecosystem, that people can invest in this ecosystem for the long term, that you don't have to worry about surprises that come at you from a governance standpoint. We certainly don't mind investors being surprised by market growth, market dynamics, technology disruptions, but we certainly don't like it when that overhang of corporate governance, even though it is marginal today and it is in the minority, even creeps in. So we are speaking repeatedly, frequently to investors, and we say to them that it is your job, it is your role to mentor our young founders.
Rather than push them to keep showing numbers which are really, this idea of sort of go big or go home. That's also created some of this anxiety with founders to kind of...
Look, we can agree here that there are some investors who have created this culture of shortcuts. created this culture. And I won't say who those investors are, and it's not right also. But certainly I have spoken to many of those investors and said, we will not be happy. Because at the end of the day, it is not harming just one investment. You are creating a problem for the overall perception of this huge, very important part of our ambition to be a $5 trillion economy. For us, it is not academic.
Yeah.
A $1 trillion digital economy has a lot of space there that is occupied by and will be occupied by startups. So it's extremely important for us, and we say this repeatedly whenever I get an occasion to do that. And of course, in the particular last instance that you spoke about, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has stepped in and is looking at whatever has to be looked at. Because governance, and I say this whether it is to Twitter or whether it's to anybody, big tech, small tech, Indian tech, foreign tech, that in India, we are a country run by laws. However smart you are, or however spiffy you are with your PR and your all of that, you still have to understand that at the end of the day, there are laws in India that you have to comply with. And that is the basic essence of running a business in India and operating a business in India, regardless of who you are.
You and Twitter have had a long relationship that's been very dramatic and interesting too. But that doesn't happen anymore. I think that's one thing that I think you and this government has been quite good about. They've kind of pushed back on that, the swag and the kind of
So I don't
the
want
arrogance of the Silicon Valley founder.
So I don't even want to. I don't want to even suggest that it is adversarial. It is not adversarial. I think it is very easy for us to just keep saying that our expectation is that you do the right thing. And not the right thing as I interpret it or you interpret it, the right thing as is in the law. So whether you are Twitter or you are Meta, you are A or you are B or you are C or an Indian company or a foreign company, small company, big company, the expectation from the government of India is that you always comply with the law. And anything else is a bonus for us. We are growing, you are successful, you are raising capital, you are attracting FDI, all of that is a bonus for us. But we certainly don't want the latter to happen without the basic essence of complying with law, and that integrity is something. And so to Twitter, we have not, notwithstanding the characterizations of anything else, our approach with Twitter has been from day one, look, you are a very small part of our digital economy ambitions. You are a noisy but a small part. Social media is noisy and small. But we have as a government a lot of other things to do. We want to create jobs, we want to build factories, we want to build technology, we want to create state-of-the-art intellectual property in this country. Young Indians want to do so much more. So don't distract the whole process of building a $1 trillion digital economy by saying, somebody threatened somebody to go to jail and all of that nonsense. That's all unnecessary.
We spoke about this before, but I want to ask you on record about this, that, the companies that were synonymous with tech in India, there were 3-4 companies, and they were global, they're like, gold standard sort of organizations. They haven't matched up in terms of ambition. And even recently, in terms of corporate governance, coming back to that issue, I mean, what we saw with TCS and the recruitment scam, I don't know whether it shocked you as much as it shocked all of us.
Yeah, no, I don't think I want to use the word shocked as much as it is certainly something that came out of the blue. I mean, it is surprising and disappointing. But I think that is part of the problems of growth and problems of being this huge. I mean, TCS today is a global company. It's a huge company. We are very proud of the company, and they are really, doing some stellar work. But why have those companies not done as much in the other areas of the digital economy? That they have to say. I have certainly engaged with their leadership and have said, look, why are you not supporting more startups? Why are you not, investing in more? And I think this is a great opportunity for you to do it, not by way of criticizing them, but by inviting them to doing more than the conventional ITES, because our ambitions for the $1 trillion digital economy is predicated by all of these other areas of tech also being, in a sense, capitalized on and pursued as opportunities and invested in.
Just to go back to the point that Anand raised,
Yeah.
tech regulation.
Sure.
The telecom ministry has come out with, some sort of rules on OTT, on how to sort of get into that space,
Right.
and regulate OTT players. The reason being given is that it is for lawful interception of calls and texts. MeitY already has a proposal on the first originator. Is there a duplication of efforts? Or, are we overeager to regulate? Is there a problem there?
Yeah, so I think this perception can certainly be the case that there is some two bites of the same apple, if you want to call it that. And we are in discussion with the telecom ministry, and we certainly think there should be, in keeping with the Prime Minister's view, that it should be simple for our startups. We should not make compliance complex and difficult for our startups and the tech economy in general. So they have a certain set of objectives. The MeitY has a set of objectives. But we are clear as government that whatever we do in terms of regulations and law will be an all-of-government approach. So we certainly don't want silos, saying this law here and this law there, and then somebody will have to figure out how to harmonize those two laws. That is not how it's going to happen. So the telecom ministry has laid out their thoughts. We are laying out our thoughts, and at some point they will harmonize.
And the issue of intermediary liability as prescribed under Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act.
In the US.
In the US.
And Section 79 of the IT Act here.
Yeah. So is there a, is it something, I mean, the interpretation of safe harbor is being, it's being done in respective jurisdictions in the way the countries deem it to be. So just two questions. Do you believe that safe harbor should exist? And secondly, should there be global alignment on what the definitions is so that, there's regulatory overlap across jurisdictions? That doesn't happen.
So, Anil, I think, and somebody mentioned in the lead up to this conversation, that governments all around the world lagged on creating guardrails for social media. So we can all agree on that pretty safely without contradiction. And a lot of that was because we said it is innovation, so let them do what they want, and they played that to the hilt, saying that, look, we are innovation, we are dumb pipes, we are dumb platforms, and therefore there should be no regulation, no guardrails, and oh, by the way, also don't prosecute us and give us safe harbor and immunity. And that played itself out in 2008 in India when we amended the IT Act. And I was, if you go down and look at the transcripts, I was the only member of parliament in that standing committee that opposed it. And I opposed it simply then, and I oppose it now for the same simple principle, which is that if there is a dispute between you as a citizen for content on a platform, by giving immunity to the platform, you are willy-nilly dragging the government into this whole dispute and making the government adjudicate it. And then when the government adjudicates it and says, look, fake news should be managed, then the free speech crowd comes in and says, but the government should not adjudicate it. Now, assume for a minute that we play this out completely and logically and see what happens. There is a person aggrieved by what happens on the platform. The platform is immune from any kind of legal action. The the person who's using the platform is anonymous and cannot be traced. So the person who's aggrieved cannot approach the platform because of immunity, cannot approach the person who's created the misinformation because the person is invisible. And then if the government intervenes to protect the citizen, then it is the government infringing on free speech. So this is not a tenable model. Therefore, I've started this discourse and debate that in the Digital India Act, the successor to the IT Act, that we give the safe harbor as an exception, not the rule. That let the disputes between a citizen or a business and a platform be decided by the court of law. To which the answer, the response is, but there will be hundreds and thousands of cases. Arre mat karo hundreds and thousands cases. You be more careful about how you manage content on your platform. So we certainly don't like the idea of the government being an arbiter of the dispute between a citizen and a platform, or a business or a small business and a platform, which is what the position that the government is forced to do with the Section 79 provision in the IT Act, the way it is framed. Now, what should be the contours of the safe harbor going forward? This is something we should debate and discuss. Should it be just blanket removed? Or should it be some exceptional criteria of being purely dumb intermediaries that have absolutely no power to curate, no power to regulate, no power on or is it a platform that can identify and trace and therefore does not allow anonymous use of the platform. So what should it be is something I think we should discuss. But the model as is just creating more and more trouble and is dragging government into areas where the government should not be going into.
Fact checker unit?
Yeah, so same thing, Anand.
No, does the government should be going there or should not be going there?
No, I think today, in today's framework where there is no liability on the platform to ensure that the platform does not have lies and fake news or fake information, and there is no such compulsion or obligation on the platform. You see what is happening when on Washington Post reported 1,000 accounts, Khalistani accounts, blatant misinformation and lies about the government and inciting violence against a community and a government. Misinformation is no longer an academic issue. It is being weaponized. It is being weaponized by state actors. It is being weaponized by vested interests. And it is causing real problem. Critiquing the government, having an opinion of the government's policies, saying that Rajeev Chandrasekhar is an incompetent minister, or whatever you want to say, is a very different thing. That is not what is being brought under the fact check purview. What has been brought under the fact check is when you say something that is patently false, the government of India is going after a certain section of society. A minister is discriminating against somebody, and it is factually false. If you don't fact check it and label it as false, you create a downstream effect of law and order, societal impact, and all of that. And every government, every responsible government has as much of a responsibility to protect its citizens from this type of a backlash of misinformation, consequence of the weaponization of misinformation, as they do to protect the freedom of speech. So I think this needs a more mature discussion. Every time we talk about something like this, it should not be, no, but it's a clamping down on editorial freedom. I say with all responsibility, the right to free speech as enshrined in Article 19 is not to be conflated with or equated with the right to misinform. And this is a construct that we must agree on, because misinformation harms people. It is a harm. And so therefore, that is what we are arguing. And therefore, the matter is in court, and we will certainly argue that part in court.
Yeah, the Digital India Act is, have you already decided how you intend on?
No, we will
or are we
not
still
do,
in?
Look, our Prime Minister's view is very clear. We will not do any legislation without extensive consultation. And for the first
Which has happened a lot in the past.
I've spent a lot of, created a lot of mileage on consultation. But for the first time in the Digital India Act, we've even done a pre-consultation. And interestingly, exactly what the people are thinking today is what we are thinking. Almost complete alignment that we need a new law. We need a law that talks about different classes of intermediaries and regulate them very differently. And that we also need to look at safe harbor and intermediary obligation very differently, where the intermediaries must take more and more ownership of what their impact is on communities and people, rather than leaving it to somebody else to sort out, whether the court or the government.
Are the intermediaries publishers? Are the intermediaries that also, I think, is a big part of
I think clearly
old question.
One of the aspects that we are dealing with is the asymmetry between big tech and content creators. There is a clear asymmetry today in ad tech, in the way people formulate the monetization formulas for content. So we certainly want to make sure there is no abuse of market power. We certainly don't want to allow, in the openness section of our DIA, we certainly want to create a symmetry there, where even the small content guy in India, or the big media, or whatever, people who are sweating and creating original media, original content, are not just left to the vagaries and whims of a big tech platform in terms of what that content will bring them in terms of monetization. So we want to create some principles there.
How closely have you and your office looked at the Australia's legislation?
Oh, we have studied every legislation, and I can tell you everything that we put out there will be state-of-the-art, contemporary, benchmarkable against the best practices in the world. Even in the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, we went out and studied everybody, what they have done. And we think what we have come up with is uniquely Indian, but at the same time, globally very competitive and acceptable.
The personal data protection, is that, how much of it is being inspired by the EU? Just to get a sense of...
No, look, I don't, I will not accept and I don't want to accept that it has been inspired by anything but our own understanding of what is right and wrong for our citizens and for our innovation economy. Fair. Of course, there are other bills there and everybody has read those other bills, but our bill, the architecture of the bill, the design of the bill, it's much more simpler, it is not compliance intensive, and it manages these seeming contradictions of protecting the citizens' rights, allowing the innovation economy to expand and grow, and giving carved out emergent requirements of the government to access personal data in emergency situations. So these three seemingly contradictory sort of requirements are being met in the bill.
You know, you said about sort of regulators, you know, coming in and not allowing somebody to sort of have this monopolistic the ability to dominate beyond just their core business.
Yes.
You know, and it is, I think, interesting that the fact is that these business models are kind of built on the ability of being able to actually do exactly that. You know, the fact that they've got a certain user base, what can they upsell to that user base? What can they, you know, how can they keep monetizing that user base? And so, just yesterday, I think the EU said, you know, Microsoft Teams can't bundle with Office 360. You know, but I mean, for the guy who's invested in Microsoft, the whole business plan from the beginning would be, can we bundle it with Office 360? And then can we create more value for the user and the shareholder in doing that?
Yeah.
So this regulator...
No, Anand, look, I think it is a common practice now amongst big tech in general to push the envelope as much as they can push in terms of how they can use their market power, how can they use their footprint to create these additional adjacent business lines, whether it is in AI, whether it is in search engine, whether it is in whatever. Now, we have to have mature, evolved regulatory frameworks that basically keep at the center citizens' rights and citizens' benefit and choice. So while I personally don't have any ideological opposition to bundling and unbundling and giving it in an easier manner of multiple products and services, as long as it is not crowding out choice for the consumer. If a consumer is forced to pick a particular video conferencing software or a productivity tool over the other because it comes bundled, that is certainly something that Competition Commission will certainly be looking at repeatedly going at. Like I said, countries around the world had allowed all these platforms to grow and evolve as innovators. And so there was very little guardrails that were prescribed, and so they did what they did. And today we are where we are. So a lot of this is playing catch up. A lot of countries, including us, are playing catch up in how do we regulate these big tech platforms so that they don't, at the end of the day, trample over the legitimate rights of our Indian consumers to freedom of choice and price and cost and so on and so forth. I will say this, the impact of the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill for sure will be a deep behavioral change in almost every one of these platforms that have built a business model around harvesting and misusing personal data. So I don't want to say anything more than that, but I can certainly tell you that that is the objective, that a lot of business models have been created that harvested personal data for one reason, but used it for precisely half a dozen other reasons and created models, language models, learning models, all of that. All of that comes to a grinding halt after the Digital Personal Data Protection.
And this is global companies and Indian companies both, equal, same treatment?
Both.
One of the areas where regulation is now kind of being spoken about, and one area that I thought, was coming out of India with some innovation and with some sense of sustainable business model was gaming. Mm-hmm. And it's a space where, we were not dependent on Google, Facebook to kind of see success. We had many, gaming companies, real money and even just normal gaming companies who were just, they were just hitting it out of the park. Every quarter the results were, better than they expected. A lot of investments came with it. They got a bit of a body blow a couple of days ago. What's your view exactly on gaming, your personal view?
No, so look, first of all, I don't think it should be considered or characterized as a body blow. there is a certain process that the GST Council, which please understand that is not Government of India, that is all state governments, and there is a general tendency among state governments to look at gambling and then extrapolate online gambling and online gaming as a surrogate of gambling as being a social evil. So there is that instinct in almost all popularly elected state governments and the government in the center to basically not allow that to be encouraged and grow. Parallelly, on the 7th of January of this year, we were given a mandate in MeitY to create a framework for what will be permissible online. That through a series of consultations, we have now notified essentially a framework of what is permissible. So this train of the GST Council was on its own independent track for the last 2.5 years. They have pronounced essentially that they consider online gambling to be akin to gambling in casinos. And I have clarified yesterday after the GST came out, that we will certainly take this evolving framework that allows permissible online gaming, including permissible online real money gaming, and we will ask the GST Council to consider it. And therefore, their own view of the online gaming space will be divided into what is permissible and what is not permissible. And on the non-permissible side, you can do whatever punitive taxation, GST that you want. But on the permissible, it should be something, a tax regime that we hope they will consider, should encourage the growth, encourage the innovation and proliferation and expansion, investments and job creation in that space. That is our goal, hope and mission, and we will certainly be working on that. So I don't think, yes, it was not good news for some people, but it is from a slightly different perspective of not being aware that this work is now reaching conclusion and this regulatory framework has reached almost, now we are clear on this. We will refer this to the GST Council.
The GST Council has a lot of BJP-controlled state finance ministers in it.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be that difficult to kind of convince them, I guess.
No, look, I mean, if you say so, I will agree. I don't want to contradict you. Look, I'm not the one who's going to be convincing them. It's the Honorable Finance Minister who chairs the GST Council. I certainly will, it is our duty and mission that we will communicate to them what we believe is the new framework of permissible online gaming and what is not permissible as a mutually excluded section, and then they will consider it.
Whatever is permissible. There was an interesting column in the Financial Express today. I can shamelessly plug my own newspaper on my show, so I'm doing it.
Vertical integration.
Vertical integration.
Bundling.
Which actually said that they welcomed the 28%. They said at least it's the state will benefit. Let governments benefit from it, but let the industry also thrive.
So Anand, there is a history here that there have been bad actors in the online gaming. Now, for all of the characterization of body blow and we are upset and Rajeev Chandrasekhar is Murdabad and all that stuff, there have been people who have gamed the system as gaming companies. So a lot of that is now determining the response of state governments. I mean, for example, in my state in Karnataka, there is clearly a bad actor there who has gamed the system and made lots of money, not paid any GST. And so therefore, that is also conditioning a lot of the state level behavior that some of these platforms, I don't see a lot of them, some of these platforms have masqueraded as gaming and have done gambling. Some of these platforms have masqueraded as gaming but not paid GST at all, even at the 18%. So there is that also happening. So I don't want anybody to believe that this is all just about the GST Council getting it wrong. Some of the responses by the state governments are conditioned by what companies have done in the past. I am hoping with this new regulation and this new regulatory framework settling down that everybody can be onboarded who will be good, responsible, sort of participants in the online gaming space.
No, I mean, a Gamescraft, you won't say the name, let me say it, a Gamescraft kind of organization, if it, you will be able to sift that out easier if you kind of move on this kind of fast. But your idea of permissible games and non-permissible games, let's just talk about permissible games right now. You would accept that as the GST Council has suggested right now and has proposed and probably get into law in 4 or 5 months, it is punitive, right? Because I mean, and my understanding, and I'm actually quite confused about it, but my sense of it was that every time you go and you make a bet,
So there are many, one of the problems is that there are many interpretations of this and it's not still fully clear even to me.
okay,
Are you paying 28% on every wager out of the wallet into the game?
Yes.
Are you paying it one time into the wallet? If you're doing it every time, then certainly it's going to become extremely complex.
may as well
and
not have
expensive.
the, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I am concerned about another aspect of this, which is that the small guys and the small startups will quickly die. And that is certainly not what any policy objective is, that we want only the big guys to weather this and the small guys die. So I think, like I said, we are at early stages of developing this framework. Once we are also convinced that we have settled down the framework, we will communicate this to the GST Council. And I have spoken to the Honorable Finance Minister and herself, and we will hopefully have them consider this.
Something similar kind of happened with crypto. Would you say it was similar, that you encourage the industry and then suddenly kind of they've all run away now because there was kind of mixed communication coming out of government?
I don't think it's the same thing, because crypto, nobody has discouraged anything on Web3 and blockchain innovation. What the government said was that if you invest in crypto, there are two things that you should be aware of. One is you are investing in a very volatile asset class.
Yeah.
And therefore, we certainly don't want to encourage that type of speculation in a category of assets that nobody knows anything about. Second is that you better make sure that when you buy a Bitcoin or you buy any US dollar denominated crypto, that you're going through the RBI route of getting the foreign currency permissions through the LRS. And many crypto exchanges and brokers are taking rupees and giving them Bitcoins. And that was all running afoul of various different laws in India. So what was said during Budget 2022, and I think many people thank the government for having said it, because a lot of people exited crypto before the entire US crypto markets went through this significant meltdown from September, October 22 to now. $1.5 trillion of losses were clocked in the crypto as all FTXs of the world went to jail and everybody else went to jail. So I think the fact that the government put this red light, amber light out there in 22 March, saying be careful, there is this LRS foreign exchange issue that you should be careful about, and we certainly consider this a volatile asset class. Because if you were using it for payment, no problem. But 99% of those were using it for speculation.
And on the tech aspect, blockchain innovation, there is a view that this sort of conflates with the crypto, innovation. I mean, the move from, say, proof of work to proof of stake. All of that was to ensure that mining happens in a more efficient way. So there is a link. Does a clampdown sort of kill that? Is that a worry?
No. So Anil, see, the world today is struggling in how to regulate this Web3. It is a totally new animal. It is a distributed ledger. It is taking the internet, which is distributed anyway, and further distributing it and desegregating it. So these are all now common challenges that the world is looking at. And naturally enough, because we are the largest presence on the global internet today, with 85 crore or 84 crore Indians on the internet, and 120 crores Indians by 2025, we are the single largest presence on the global internet. So the world actually is looking at India and saying, you tell us what your regulatory views are. And for example, this whole principles of openness, safety and trust and accountability that we've laid down for all policy making for the Indian internet, that the Prime Minister has laid down, is now being followed by the US, it is being followed by EU. The whole aspect of regulating AI through the prism of user harm, the world is now responding to that. That's what we set out to do. So I think we have a leadership role, and to the point that do our laws look like somebody else's law? Al-Olama, the digital minister of UAE, said something very recently when I was there. He said, now India is leading the way and the world will follow. And I think it is not because just of our capabilities, but because we are simply the largest presence on the global internet. And so in a lot of ways, we are on that head table and saying, these are our views, this is our vision of a future safe and trusted internet.
If I can just simplify the vision, it's said that in America, how America did digital was with innovation, how China did digital was with imitation, and how EU did digital was with regulation. Is there one word for how India will do digital?
No, we will do innovation, 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 but we will never allow our citizens' rights to safety and trust on the cyberspace to ever be compromised. So these are both attached to each other. We will continue to grow our digital economy. We will continue to charge forward in innovation and leadership there, but never forgetting that our citizens deserve and have the right to a safe and trusted cyberspace.
We'll get to some audience questions. A fantastic crowd we have here. Neeraj, just before that, I'll just come to one area. I want to talk about artificial intelligence. So if it doesn't come up in the audience, I'll come to it. But just before I get there, one thing that sort of the personalities that run tech, they become celebrities. So, obviously the main guy was Steve Jobs, who kind of brought this, selfie taking. Everybody wanted his autograph, and it brought this rock star celebrity kind of culture that tech leaders started getting.
Yes.
In India, the one person who I think kind of got there to a certain degree was Nandan Nilekani, right? He had this cult following. You go to engineering colleges and they were like, this guy's created this world-class company, and he's given back to India with, Aadhaar, and there was a sort of halo built around him. Today, this generation, that person seems to be people like Ashneer Grover, who are abrasive, who are sort of opinionated, very opinionated, they speak and then they think about what they're saying. So, what do you think about this kind of the new inspirational tech leader?
No, I actually admire people who have strong views. But I only argue that those strong views have to be based on some substantive facts or knowledge. I mean, one is to thump the table and say, I have a view. But the other is to thump the table and have that view be respected because people understand that the view holds a lot of substance and data or facts in it. So I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing when we have more and more youngsters being very verbose, very articulate about what their vision is, jumping in and articulating their worldview on what should be right and wrong. And I think that's good. And I think in a lot of ways, that is the future of India, that we are a democracy, we've always been a noisy democracy. And I think even in the area of tech, why should it be anything less than being a collection of many different people talking about many different ideas? But I only say this, that at least for people like me to stand up and pay attention to somebody who's being loud and noisy, is that there should be some substance to that noisiness, and it should not be just noise and That's why there's a word called static. There's static, and there is a substance. So,
Neeraj, before I come to you, sorry, I don't want to forget that Rajeev ji, we always forget, but he, because of the way he is, but he's actually a politician, and I keep forgetting that. So can we just spend 2 minutes on politics?
Sure,
just because, you've been doing this since 2006. You've got the kind of perfect space in politics because this is your area. You've sort of built the Pentium processor yourself. You worked in Silicon Valley. You're an engineer by training. Yesterday, I.N.D.I.A was announced. Say something about that, the opposition getting united.
No, I think, rebranding or rebadging a bad product doesn't change the product. I mean, I think when you are ashamed of the product that you have sort of driven in for the last 50 years or 60 years, and then you think you can pull a fast one over the people of India by just simply changing the name, good luck. I don't think the people of India buy that rebranding and rebadging. They look for substantive change. They look for real discourse in our democracy. And if they can deliver that, then there's some meaning to this rebadging. But otherwise, I see it simply as the same gaggle of people who took us down a path that we don't want to go down again, just calling themselves something else. UPA today is a bad word. So they've realized that. So they've grabbed a new name. How do you view your role in government and in this government going forward? Assuming 2024 is in the bag, going forward, what do you have your? One thing that I feel there's a big Jaitley-sized hole in this government, and do you feel like you're kind of
your aspiration would be to fill that hole in some way? Because you're that, you appear as this, as a moderate voice. You appear as a guy who talks across all sides. You appear as a person who has his own standing beyond politics.
No. I certainly don't want anybody to even imagine that or think that is a goal. Look, the thing about the BJP is that a lot of us have come from very different backgrounds. And, I came at this from a very different background. And I have enjoyed and had the privilege of, in a sense, learning from the Ataljis, the Advanijis, the Arunji, then Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, Amit Shah ji. And so for us, it is learning from all of them. Now, I don't think anybody should ever think that they will be an A or a B or C. I certainly want to be a Rajeev Chandrasekhar, and I hope I'm remembered after 18 years of public life as somebody who did some good for the country. And so that is my goal, that is my ambition. I think Arun Jaitley ji or Anand Kumar ji, all these leaders whom I have learned a lot from, they were, tremendous people. They saw the emergency, they struggled. I have fortunate enough not to have gone through all that struggle. So they are very different people, and I don't think it's even appropriate for me to be mentioned in the same category.
But is it as fun, when you got into this position, like now you have to now defend Brij Bhusan? How did you expect that you'd be doing this?
No, look, there's nothing to defend. I don't think there's anything to be defensive about. Look, we are the single largest political formation in the world. Our core of our political party, and today if you look all around the party, you will see many, many people who are in this for service, public life, public service. Now, are there people on the edges who do things that sometimes are wrong? Maybe, yes, of course, this is any organization. If it is a media organization, political organization, government organization, there will be good, there will be very good, and there will be people who stray sometimes. What is the response of that? As long as the law catches up with the people, gives a fair shake to those who are accused of wrongdoing to prove his or her innocence, and then finally it plays out, that should be our playbook. So I am certainly not embarrassed. I am very, very proud of many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that I interact with and work with who do stellar work. And so for one person or one headline or one allegation certainly doesn't make it the world's largest party. I can certainly tell you that.
But there are things in politics, just by I'm not saying BJP Congress, but when you're in politics, you do have to defend the indefensible sometimes. It just kind of happens. Now you're in party, you're in an alliance with.
Anand, I've been in public life for 18 years.
Yes, 2006 was your
2006. When I started off in politics, I did this because I thought, let me see what it will be like. And I was met with a lot of skepticism. And I remember the day in 2006 when I took an oath. There were two lady MPs, whom names I shall not say, who were loudly saying, "Ek aur aa gaya businessman." And that was the cynicism and skepticism with which my entry into politics was seen. So I like proving people wrong. And I think over the last 18 years, I've proved repeatedly that all the naysayers and cynics have been silent.
You have proved yourself. But I'm saying when it comes to now Ajit Pawar and...
I'm continuing. I said the reason I'm able to do that is that I'm in the BJP. If it was somewhere else, I would be running after some dynast and figuring out what gift to give him or her, or what fawning adulatory phrase to call him, or what photograph I should put in my pocket or whatever. So I have led a life in 18 years of public life where I have been given responsibilities based on what I have delivered, based on my potential, and there has been no godfathering. There's no godfathering in the BJP. And it's a great privilege and honor for me after 16 years when the Prime Minister picked me up and gave me this job on the 7th of July 2021. I did not expect it. And so I think that journey itself should tell you that this is a very different political formation compared to the rest of the guys who are doing the rebadging.
Yeah. But you have to defend the I.N.D.A. Now, I.N.D.A. now is Ajit Pawar, Praful Patel, the other people who, literally like a week ago, we were kind of getting...
Look, I don't know why this is a defense. There's a very simple explanation. The growth of the N.D.A. after the BJP formed it has been over the last 25 years, from nothing to something significant today. More and more political formations today see the stark difference between our vision for India and what we are doing for India. versus what other people are doing. Now, if I'm a politician today, and I am smart and savvy, and I understand which way the people of India's expectations are now moving, they will certainly support the BJP and they'll join the N.D.A. Now, I don't see anything remotely, to defend. If somebody today turns around and says, I don't want to be in this rebadged UPA anymore, I certainly don't want to be partners with a political formation that does nothing but criticize India and tear down India. Look, at the heart of it, every Indian today feels for this country. You may be on opposite sides of a political ideology or divide, but I see almost certainly across all political formation a desire for India to do well.
Yeah.
Except for one person who does 5 holidays a month. Yeah. So that person has a different DNA, and good luck to that DNA.
There's a new phrase I just picked up this morning. I heard for the first time this morning amongst the Bombay business community. It's called iced. Have you heard of this?
Iced.
Iced. I-C-E-T. I've been iced.
No.
Income tax, ED, when they've come knocking on your door, the CBI. Income tax, CBI, ED, and we get the point. Is it something that you, again, now defending, but...
Look, look. I can't answer this. Look, if nobody will, this is my contention, nobody will knock on any door if there is nothing there to be knocked for.
Okay.
So, I mean, if somebody comes knocking on your door, whether it's by mistake or inadvertently,
right.
And I've had a fair share of this when I was a businessman, you have to just deal with it. I think if you have nothing to be embarrassed about or nothing to worry about, why are you worried about that knock? And that sounds very ominous about a knock on the door, because it sounds like some Hitlerian thing. But my own view is, people do tell me there is income tax is doing this and so on and so forth. I say, look, you've just got to answer them and you just have to move forward. But I don't think this is some personality trait of a government in the sense that somebody trying to make it.
Okay. Neeraj, please.
Good evening, Rajeev ji. My name is Neeraj Roy. First of all, I think I speak on behalf of everybody. Just to state that the articulation and clarity with which you took up questions, whether it is to do with India's ambitions with regard to semiconductors, we interacted with companies like NVIDIA, Intel, etc., and it is no mean task, and heartily encourage and support that entire initiative. To you, going into the conversation about the new Digital India Act, and obviously with the simplicity with which you clarified the new GST challenges, etc. My question to you, sir, is in context to, I think, what Anant wants to tee up, which is about sort of the new both demon and opportunity in front of us, which is artificial intelligence. And given the fact that the last 15 years, the India stack story, starting with authentication to payments to now potentially Bhashini, becoming an integral part, could you visualize a scenario with this broader ambition that AI should not be the core domain of the big tech and needs to be democratized for the best use of citizens? And therefore, here's a thought just for you to, could you visualize that through Bhashini or open democratized platforms, Indian citizens could potentially be leasing to thousands of platforms for 15 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes, whatever, during their activity? So I am on Flipkart, I am doing a transaction, and for those 3 minutes, all the data that I have had on your platform and whatever is in there in the public source, you can access it. But post that, almost like if I can use a Marvel Thanos analogy, and it's the dust effect, it's kind of gone away. If India is to lead this, and some of us have been part of things like with Startup India as well, we are trying to bring in governance, etc. I'd just like to hear your thoughts how in the Digital India Act, AI is going to be an integral part, and what could we do to protect citizens in this manner?
So, our approach to AI is going to be a continuation of our sort of jurisprudence that we have built and developed over the last 2 years since May 21, which is that we are regulating cyberspace and technology in general through the prism of user harm. We will not regulate use cases. We will not say, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do this. But we are moving into, and we have successfully implemented this in social media and so on, which is that we will list out, and that list will continue to evolve on what a platform cannot do and cannot enable doing. So that is user harm. The moment that becomes a construct, then whether it's big tech or small tech or whichever tech, you take on the accountability of what the possibilities of the use of the platform are. You become extra cautious that the platform cannot enable deepfakes. The platform cannot enable something else. So we are approaching it from that angle initially. Now, there is an argument, and this will come out during the consultation that we will have, obviously, nationwide, that certain use cases also you should prohibit from day one. Like saying biometric. Don't have models that can learn from the biometrics. And that there should be some guardrails saying these kind of use cases we do not permit at all. So this is broadly our approach. We'll keep it simple, keep it about user harm, cast a very clear, unambiguous obligation on the platforms, AI platforms in particular, not to deliver user harm.
I'm just going a step, you're looking at it, and rightly so, in terms of how do you protect. But if I were to go with the fact that AI and its growth is both inevitable and is the next sort of, power of sorts in even in geopolitics, etc. Is there a possibility that the way you've democratized payments, can we democratize this and let it be enabled?
I was getting to that. So that is number one in terms of regulation. In terms of the whole space of AI and how we plan to occupy that space, the program that the Prime Minister has sanctioned is called I.N.D.I.A. And a large part of the I.N.D.I.A, there are about 6 different elements to it. We are building our AI compute capacity here of 25,000 GPUs. We are building innovators and creating funding for innovators in AI. One part of it is called the India Datasets Program, where almost all of the data in India, private and public, in anonymized, non-personal form, will be made available through a platform curated as data sets or paired data sets or groups of data sets to Indian companies and Indian researchers only. So no foreign big tech company will have access to the potential to create these build large learning models based on India data sets. The third, you talked about Bhashini and the India stack. We certainly are going to build learning layers and learning into the India stack. Currently, these are, as you know, they are just databases. You authenticate it and you use the app. But we are building in intelligence into that to further streamline governance, further allow much more smarter governance, create patterns from the use of these India stack in terms of what type of people are using it, what type of applications are they using it for, what are they not able to use it for, etc., rather than have it go through these periodic revisions and updates. So that is certainly going to be part of the India stack.
Yeah, please.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. So I'm a student of St. Stephen's College and...
in Delhi?
Yes,
oh.
And you had come to college, but
yes.
Didn't get the opportunity to ask you a question. So today you spoke about cryptocurrency and how the government has clarified that there's no discouragement as such. And when the Honorable Finance Minister spoke in her budget speech, she said that the digital rupee will be rolled out. And my understanding is that it's going to use the blockchain technology. So I want to ask you, what is the progress on that and how much of a role is your ministry playing?
No, there's no role for my ministry. So it's an RBI that is launching the digital rupee because they're the custodian of the rupee. So they will launch the digital rupee. They have said that the CBDC, that's the central bank central bank digital currency will be rolled out. I certainly haven't got an update on it. It is, like I said, the RBI that you should be asking.
They've launched a wholesale CBDC, and a pilot on a retail CBDC is already on.
Thank you.
Adda Shetty is founder of Bank Bazaar.
Good evening, Minister. So I can attest to the high-quality pre-consultations that you've been doing for Digital India Act. Like you said, right, MeET is at the cutting edge globally on setting digital policy, and you spoke about AI guidelines.
Right.
You touched upon privacy controls with the DPDP.
Correct.
How are you thinking of sharing of credit and revenue by large AI systems with original content creators? Because class action suits have started. How are you thinking of this issue?
To be frank, there are many issues like this, and this is an issue that has been posed to me. We don't want to approach this with any preconceived answer to this. I think what we want to do is we will, in the draft DIA, which will hopefully be out very soon, we will pose this as one of the questions to be answered during consultation. And we believe that is a better approach to do it. We did this during online gaming because what we started with and what we ended up with were totally 180 degrees different. That is the power of consultation. So if there is 100,000 minds who apply themselves to what are the problems and what are the challenges that we will face, number one. Number two, the architecture that we are using for all legislation is that it will be constantly evolvable. So nothing, we will try and minimize what is hard-coded into the law and allow subordinate legislations which are faster to evolve when there is a new challenge or a new circumstance that we had not foreseen earlier. So I will not answer that question with any view of mine. And I think we will just say that that question, amongst other, there's a half a dozen other questions on AI that will be answered, will be questions that will be posed during consultation, and we will see what the answers are.
Sumit?
Hi, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Thanks for all the great insights today, and thanks, Anand, for having us here. Really appreciate it. I have two very different questions. One is just a follow-up on the online gaming space, and specifically related to the rules that you introduced in April.
Sure.
And the formation of the SROs. As I understand it, some applications have been made, and we are looking forward so the next steps to identify what is permissible and not permissible under the rules. Any idea on the timelines for that and the next steps?
Soon.
Okay. All right. And no additional details?
No, I can't give you the time of the day and the day of the week. But there's no incentive for us to delay it.
Okay.
So we will certainly be doing it soon. We've got the application. We waited for about 2 months, kept waiting, looking at the postman, waiting for that letter.
Right.
Didn't come. And then suddenly they have, so we will respond.
Okay, great. And this coming back to the conversation on AI. I know that you guys are working on I.N.D.I.A, but if you think about AI in this connected world, how do you actually control a good actor or a bad actor if the globe doesn't come together on this subject?
I agree.
And what is the government doing by connecting with the rest of the governments across the globe to handle this challenge?
No, absolutely right. I think today the internet has no boundaries. And it's the classic case of how to describe a cyber crime is that the victim is in one jurisdiction, the crime is in a second jurisdiction, and the perpetrator is in a third jurisdiction. Now, overlay that with India, where law and order is a state subject, and the victim is in one state, the perpetrator is in another state, and the crime is in a third state. So certainly, in the case of the internet, our approach towards law and order, approach to investigation, prosecution, requires cross-border protocols and cross-border frameworks. As I said, for many years and many decades, governments around the world ignored this. And the US did it, Australia did it, everybody did it. It is only China believed in walling off the internet, and they could do what they want anyway. So we are today in the G20 under India's presidency talking about, as the Prime Minister says, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family, and it is represented, best by the internet. So, which is the point I made. Many countries are now looking to India's lead in terms of what should be the framework of legislation, what should be the basic principles and guardrails in approaching these issues. It is absolutely impossible for law enforcement in India today to prosecute a crime that is originating in, let's say, some Central Asian country, and the victim is in Singapore, and the crime is in a bank account in a third jurisdiction. It's impossible. So we have to, and I think there's a collective realization by countries around the world that you cannot approach this as good as you think you are, as good as you think your police is and your investigative skills on the internet are, that you cannot create a framework of deterrence and laws and prosecution and investigation and prosecution if there is no global. I think after this G20, there will be more and more countries coming together. Just 4 days ago, along with the Home Minister, we inaugurated a G20 conference for 2 days that talked about global partnerships for a safe and trusted internet. So the world is waking up to it, and I think it's a question of time. We will evolve something.
Sam Altman did make a little bit of a harsh comment with AI in India when he said, you know, we're too late. We've missed that bus. That's...
Like I said, everybody has a point of view, and there's a fundamental right to a point of view. People have dissed us and been cynics about us so often, and we take pride in proving people wrong. Yeah. So I think that's fine. The same people who said the Vedanta Foxconn breakup is a blow to our semiconductor will find that we'll have a fab very soon, or multiple fabs soon.
Tell me something. How much of diplomatic kind of pressure does come, you know, when you talk about regulating big tech, specifically in America? In China, we know it's a complicated relationship.
I think in the past maybe, but I think almost every country today is on the same page, except for some marginal differences around the edges.
Even the US?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You've seen that they've made an attempt to repeal 230.
Yes.
And, but their constitution provides for a very different interpretation of free speech and First Amendment. Ours is very different. Ours is Article 19, and it has exceptions. It's a fundamental right, not an absolute right. So I think every country realizes the dangers of misinformation, dangers of an unregulated social media ecosystem, and everybody is trying to play catch up with different types of responses. But I think eventually they're all going to converge into some global set of principles.
Sure. Kuldeep? Hi.
Hi, my name is Kuldeep Sikarwar. Very well played. I think you played with the front foot with all the difficult bouncers. Anand has been...
No, I was playing, but...
No, and well played. I'm also wishing you for the next 20 years. As a policymaker, great to have people like you.
Thank you.
Actually, two questions. One macro, one micro. On the public digital infrastructure, with a lot of upgradations are happening at the government level. So how are you thinking about the entire public infra, especially some vulnerabilities, in the system? And second, I find it very implausible or very difficult to believe that, some WhatsApp link, somebody clicks and the money just goes away. It's some banking and something. So how are you guys thinking about trying to, cross borders is difficult, obviously, but within India, it seems just too easy to kind of, get away with all these things. So your comments, please.
Yeah, no, I think, let me take the second one first. Again, if you look at it, it is sitting at the intersection where 3 different ministries are involved. And then there is a state government involved. So, for example, whenever somebody reports that I am a victim of a phishing incident, or some money has gone off from my bank account because I clicked on the wrong link, you have to report that crime to a police station in a local jurisdiction. It's a state government police that takes care of it. Now, it is absolutely clear that different states have different types of capacities and capabilities on cybercrime and cyber investigation. Some states don't even consider it a priority. Some states consider it a priority. Some states are geographically concentrated on where that capability lies. So this is an issue where we are working actively. We do twice a year a conference on state IT ministers. This is high on the agenda of making sure state governments ramp up their own capability to protect their citizens from cyber crimes, protect, investigate, and then prosecute. It is a big gap today in many states. It is a gap that we are trying to advocate that it should be filled.
I think any questions that I can get a quick show of hands? Just one last one here. Yes. We'll take 2 together. We'll take 3 together, but we keep them short, please.
Yeah, but perhaps this one will not go with anything else.
Okay.
Just
you just keep it short.
Yeah, but I will. Just as Anand kind of went closer to the political waters right at the end. I think that's what I'm also going to be doing.
Sure.
But perhaps I'm going to enter into treacherous waters, so please bear with me.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing. Whatever you have said actually sounds very good, and one would it would be really great to be able to say, yeah, that's what it is. This is the narrative, etc. But unfortunately, there's a lot of data and there's a lot of experience that comes our way which doesn't seem to be corroborating it.
Okay.
For example, let's take the issues head on. Brij Bhusan. Yeah, sure, the law should take its course. But, there has been total silence. We've not even heard somebody say that let the law take its course. The law has taken a lot of time. So these are the kind of things which actually somehow muddy the narrative. Similarly, so if you just step into the shoes of the other side. Similarly, if you see the kind of claims that are made, and so many of those claims are then proven to be wrong with your terminology of substance.
Okay.
And then you say, oh my God, that cannot be. How can somebody be making such a claim?
Okay.
Any comments on that part of it?
No, so the Brij Bhusan thing, it was asked and answered. I think if the police is doing its job, there's an FIR being filed, witnesses have been brought, and there's a comprehensive FIR that's been filed, I don't think there's a need for anybody to stand up and say, let the law take its own course. Because that is precisely what is happening.
Let's just get to it.
No, so look, we can quibble about whether the law should respond in 48 hours or 72 hours or 82 hours, but the fact is the process has been started and the process will play itself out. And I think our jurisprudence, everybody is innocent till proven guilty, and he's been given a right to prove his innocence. The police has filed the case. On the other issue, unless you give me some examples of what is it that we are making claims about that you feel don't pass muster, I can't comment on it. You're just making a general point. There are some claims we made. Nothing I have said on this forum, and nothing that I say, certainly I don't see anything that the government says that is not backed up with facts and reality.
Just a quick question. We get to Mayank, and then we should get to my rapid fire.
Good evening, sir. My name is Ashish, and probably a lighter one towards the end. So I asked ChatGPT, what is the question I should ask? Should I have an opportunity to ask Rajeev Chandrasekhar ji?
Oh, really? Okay.
And the first question it said was, what motivated you to enter politics? You were an entrepreneur and this.
I've been asked this question and I don't know. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had just sold my cellular company. I was trying to lose some weight and take a sabbatical for some months. And somebody said, why don't you come with me and meet Deve Gowda, who's in a hospital, convalescing in the hospital. I went to him and he looked at me and he said, why don't you join politics? That's truly how this started. And then the next day I went and met Anand Kumar ji, who was my member of parliament and almost my elder brother. And I said, somebody's planted this idea in my head, what should I do? He said, you should. And there it started, yeah.
But Karnataka politics is it's quite interesting. I mean, this election was a very interesting one because it really feels like what the world's vision or the world's opinion of a typical Bangalore person is not the Karnataka voter.
No, but Bangalore, we increased vote share by almost 7%. So certainly the Bangalore voter voted very differently from North Karnataka and Mumbai, Karnataka. So that
you would think a guy like Nandan Nilekani would get voted easily in a place like Bangalore, but it didn't.
No, look, I think you underestimate the drag effect of being in the Congress. I think you certainly are underestimating that. The fact that Nandan Nilekani could lose should tell you how big a liability being a congressman is.
Mayank.
Just, I know that you have taken a lot of questions. Everything is on IT, everything was in information technology, and people forget that skills also form under you. So I just
My apologies, I was trying, but...
I just want to end with skills. And I know that government has done a lot of things around skilling and making skilling a mainstream thing, skilling, upskilling, etc. But a lot of focus has been on skilling the ecosystem for jobs in the country. But there are those many jobs in this country. Having said that, there's enough opportunity for Indian talent globally. Is there a thought that the government has of positioning India as the talent capital for the globe? And is there something that one could look forward from the government on how to position India as a talent capital of the global ecosystem.
No, that phrase if it's your original phrase, then you and the Honorable Prime Minister think exactly alike. Because that's exactly his mission to us. That given all our demographic advantages and strengths and this young population, that it is not enough to just talk about young population, but make it really a skilled asset that will work for the Indian economy as well as the global economy. So that is our go-to mission. And the way we are approaching skilling is, one is of course to create industry-ready, future-ready skills. And the other is to create an ecosystem that will help hundreds and thousands and lakhs of self-employed micro-entrepreneurs. So there are two sides to the skilling equation. So one is what you know and you do, which is really skilling, upskilling and reskilling for the economy that is growing, for the opportunities of jobs that are in the economy and global economy as well. And the other hand, we are also focused as much on empowering and connecting self-help groups, rural entrepreneurs to larger and larger markets, skilling them with e-commerce, skilling them with financial and technology skills, to digitize them, to digitally enable them. So both these are the sides that we're working on. And just for your information, the Prime Minister announced in this budget 8,800 crores for the next 4 years for skilling. That's a significant investment.
Very short, please. Very short.
Very short on a lighter note. Sir, you mentioned Twitter is noisy and we are a noisy democracy. Does that mean we are a Twitter democracy?
No, I think that, no. Look, the percentage of people of India who are on Twitter is a microcosm, a small percentage compared to the real citizens and the real active democracy at work. So I think there's a tendency to get swayed by the narrative of social media, thinking that is somehow what India is. And that, I think, is certainly not the case.
A quick follow-up to Mayank's question before I get to my rapid fire. You know, there is this view that more and more people are, there's fewer and fewer people choosing sciences now.
Yes.
In the 11th, 12th, we're one of the few countries where science is not compulsory. You can drop math. Math is not compulsory. We did a story, 33% of undergraduate engineering seats have been going vacant. Any thoughts on this? How do we, should we be encouraging firstly, and how do we?
Certainly, I think the National Research Foundation bill that is going to be introduced into Parliament and passed hopefully quickly is going to be almost a game changer for science and science research in the country. Science requires research, applied science, kind of an ecosystem for more and more people to be excited by careers there.
Right.
And so that requires an NRF type of a bill. I'll share something since you brought this up. It used to be the case that enrollment in electronics engineering and that hardware disciplines were declining. Whenever I would travel, people would say, in my college, people are joining IT, people are joining MCA, people are joining engineering and going and getting jobs in programming. But the hardcore hardware, design, electronic stuff, people were not joining. Yesterday, one of the states that had told me this 2 years ago, the education secretary met me yesterday in Delhi and said, for the first time this year, electronics enrollments are up.
Okay.
So I think if you create the necessary sort of catalyst in the ecosystem, people will then follow those opportunities. And the national education policy is certainly a very big game changer in terms of education in India is concerned.
Perfect. So we'll do a quick rapid fire, short answers. Some might be repeated, but for the Instagram audience, for the short attention span audience, I need. Sure. So your advice to the young engineer who has gotten an offer to relocate to Silicon Valley and work for big tech at a 50% salary jump?
Don't go, stay here.
What is the last app you have downloaded?
Threads, yesterday.
A quick game. It's a game called Who Wins. I'll give you two options. You tell me who wins. So who wins the chip wars?
The democracies of the world.
Who wins Threads or Twitter?
I don't care.
Who wins Mark or Musk?
In EVs, Musk. In rocketeering, Musk. And I guess in social media, Mark.
NVIDIA or Intel?
Today, NVIDIA, by far.
So if you were still working at Intel in the year 2023, like you were when you were in Silicon Valley, would you be sending your CV to NVIDIA today?
I think hopefully after 30 years I would not be not requiring to send my biodata anyway, but resume. But if you were so pessimistic about me and my future there.
How many telecom players will India end up with in the next 10 years? 2, 3, or 4?
We should have a minimum of 3 for sure, and it would be good to have 4.
When is the last time you disagreed with the Prime Minister?
Never.
When is the last time the Prime Minister sought your advice?
No, look, the Prime Minister doesn't seek our advice. We have regular reviews with him, and he is very clear and very precise on when he thinks we are not doing our job, and he tells us that very candidly.
The one tech commentator you suggest all of us interested in tech must follow?
Oh, it's impossible. I mean, there's no one tech commentator that I follow. There are hundreds and there are so many different people depending on which area you're interested in. Look, but I certainly encourage people to get onto the dark internet and join some groups and hear 18-year-olds talk about the future of tech. That will be far more enlightening in terms of how far behind we all are in terms of our understanding of tech when you hear an 18-year-old talk about SIM cloning and hacking a crypto wallet.
Can you rate the performance of the American tech regulators? Has it been good, bad, or average?
Very laissez-faire, very let the markets decide. That is certainly not what we need or what we want, what we should have. Our people need a lot more protection from market forces and big tech power. So certainly laissez-faire and certainly not even close to what we should be doing.
The one skill that every school in India needs to urgently equip its students with to tackle AI?
I think basic tech skills though every student must have. In terms of AI, I think it's a bit of a question. I think if you can, students should certainly believe that you should not believe everything that you see on the internet. That's a nice little belief to inculcate in everybody, that what you see on the net is not necessarily the truth.
Unless it's on IndianExpress.com.
Oh, yeah. I agree on that, yes.
Policy or politics, what excites you more?
I think they are both the two sides of the same coin. I like making an impact, and I think being in government and being in politics allows you to make an impact, and that is certainly why I'm here.
User experience, user privacy, the two ends of a spectrum, which side are you closer to?
No, both. I don't think these are two ends of a spectrum. They're two sides of a coin. I think the user must experience, but the user's right to privacy cannot be violated, regardless of the experience.
The toughest question you've ever been asked as a minister?
I can't remember a tough question, but maybe you can help me with that, but I don't remember any tough question.
Okay, the one tech entrepreneur from India you look up to?
Oh, maybe the tough question is, why haven't we got a fab yet?
Yeah, that's the one that you're going to get a lot now for the next 6 months. Anil, you asked that, huh? The one tech entrepreneur from India you look up to?
No, there's not one. I like a lot of the young group that is coming out and building these things. I like them not for what they're building, but for their confidence and their real, their real determination to succeed. I think that is a spirit that was available in the past, but that was an exception rather than the rule. But the widespread confidence that we see today in the young generation is just absolutely inspiring.
The one politician, not BJP, from India who you look up to?
Not from India?
Yes. No, not from BJP, but from India.
Not from BJP, from India. I had a lot of respect for Rajesh Pilot, the late Rajesh Pilot, because he was a student of my father's in the Air Force.
Okay.
And he was the person who coaxed me or convinced me to stay back in India in 1991 and pursue the cellular opportunity. So I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for Deve Gowda because of the reasons I've told you. He showed me the way, if you want to call it that. And of course, amongst, you said no BJP, but I certainly want to add that within the BJP there have been 4 or 5 people who have certainly been inspiration to me: Anand Kumar, Arun Jaitley, Narendra Modi ji, Amit Shah ji, and Atal ji and Advani ji. So I have to say them because, because they certainly have inspired me.
Last question, the one investor you look up to, global?
Not really. I mean, I can't think of anybody. I mean, everybody is, successful. They have mixed. I decide my heroes very sparingly. I mean,
Yes, I can see that.
I have a slightly higher threshold before I decide that they inspire me.
Okay, so one last, I think this should be your toughest question. If somebody asked you the next rapid fire, you might be saying this. You're on a flight to Silicon Valley, the direct flight. It's just 2 people on the plane. You have to choose Gandhi or Savarkar. Who do you choose?
To choose to do what?
To be on the plane with you.
To Silicon Valley.
You have a long flight. You have 1 passenger. You can choose between these 2 people.
And they both want to go to the Silicon Valley.
You have to choose one of them for the long flight.
So I will let both of them travel and I'll step aside. I want to be here in India anyway. So.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Rajeev ji,
Thank
for a
you.
lovely session.
Thank you.
Thank you to the audience. I know it's been a very tough day to get out of the house, so thank you all for making it. Really appreciate it.